In March of 2024, I released a short visual novel called Across Kiloparsecs. For a long time I had wanted to create one, and I built it as a side project while working on Crossing the Sands. The way I work is that I always need to have a primary project and at least one secondary project. This helps protect against burnout because when I get stuck, or reach a stopping point, or need a break from the main project, I can make progress on the secondary project. If I'm stuck on a problem I can't solve for a couple of days in the main project, I will still have made progress on the secondary and won't become demotivated. Or if I finish a really hard to build feature, I can take a low intensity break by placing trees in an environment on my second project. I wasn't tracking my time for the project, but I think I probably put about 320 hours or so, or about 2 months of full-time work, into creating the visual novel. It probably would have been less if I had a better video card, but I had an old one that usually kept me waiting on renders. I had been visiting the Daz3d shop and collecting the free assets, and picking up every deeply discounted sci-fi asset I could get my hands on, for about a year. I was subscribed to the Plus plan during that time. Since then, the store has become heavily subscription-focused, and you can probably build a great collection of things quickly if you subscribe, but the free section is gone. Is a subscription worth it? I can't say. I unsubscribed after releasing my VN because I no longer had a goal, so I wasn't a member for the changeover. On to the process. I started on paper by creating basic character sheets for everyone involved. Just their name, some vital stats, and various personality traits and motivations. Then I sketched the story out on paper with some branches and choices. After I had an outline of what I wanted to build, I went through my library to see whether I had the things needed to create it, both the characters and the settings. I had about 80 to 90% covered, and ended up buying a couple of things to fill in the gaps, about $100 or so total. I spent some time customizing the characters and lighting in Daz, but I was really beginner level, so the characters are not very original, except Lana. I spent a lot of time on her look, and the scenes are mostly stock. If you're going to make a large project using Daz art, I highly recommend investing the time to become really good at customizing characters and scenes. I think people are tired of seeing what is basically clip art. Once I had some initial art to work with, it was time to start assembling the novel. Most projects use RenPy, and it's the best option for most people. I decided not to use it specifically because it uses Python. My last job used Python, and I was incredibly sick of it after suffering through dependency hell and all the annoyances of working with Python in projects larger than it's meant to handle. I was already working in Unity, so I chose a Unity-based solution. That was NaniNovel. NaniNovel has been used for a good number of projects. It's not free, but it's also not particularly expensive for a tool that you only buy once and own for life without paying a monthly subscription fee. It's a simple install from the Unity package manager, and other than the build process, you don't really need to think about it or interact with Unity if you don't want to. The scripting language is very simple, and I really only used about half a dozen commands in the process of building the script. Any non-programmer can build a basic visual novel, and you don't need to become a programmer to do so. If you want to create a bunch of minigames and puzzles, that's different, but to tell an illustrated story with branching paths, that's easy as a non-programmer. A huge amount of the process was just testing and revising and making small adjustments to characters and renders. When I was finished, I had a short 2-chapter visual novel that was about an hour to go through. Maybe a bit more if you tested all of the paths. From the script, it really felt like it would be longer, but it turned out to be significantly shorter than expected. That's what being a beginner will get you, I guess. I released Chapter 1 as a demo and put the game in the February 2024 Next Fest and released it for sale afterward in March. It didn't sell very well for a few reasons. It was too short. It was too expensive for the length. The initial price was $5. I just kind of figured it was pointless to try to sell anything for less than $5. I've since lowered the price to $3, which is still kind of high for an hour of content. I discount it in the Steam sales and sell an extra copy or two each sale. Daz3d art is generally associated with adult-oriented games, and this was not an adult-oriented game. I think that put a lot of people off. I have no idea how to market a visual novel, especially a non-anime one, and I'm not an active member of any visual novel communities. One of the larger ones doesn't even accept that visual novels can be made in a non-anime style. It wasn't a commercial success, but I got some great things out of it. I learned how to create and publish a visual novel start to finish. I was able to cross creating a visual novel off my bucket list, and technically now I'm also a published fiction author who has earned income from their work. Toward the end, I was finally competent in Daz3d, which I later used to create some extra character portlets for pilots in my Survivors-like game, Eridani Survivors. That game also used some of the characters I created for Across Kiloparsecs as pilots. One, the only reviewer, said they genuinely enjoyed the story. I do think it was a pretty good story, and I'm proud of it. It was both worth and not worth the time invested. I don't regret it, but I also probably won't create another visual novel. There's nothing wrong with visual novels, I just didn't get the I must do this again feeling from it. You might. The choice of NaniNovel was ultimately neutral. I think the end result would have turned out pretty much exactly the same if I had used RenPy. If I were to create another VN, I would probably use RenPy, simply because it has a bigger community, and more plugins, tools, utilities, and batteries included, and I've managed to recover from my Python burnout. If you're building a novel and want to mix in features of Unity, NaniNovel is a great choice that opens up a lot of great options, and you should definitely use it. Despite the small community, they are very supportive and the developer is very helpful. I originally built Across Kiloparsecs as a prequel to a space strategy game I wanted to build called Kiloparsec Uprising. I couldn't figure out how to properly design and build the vague idea of Ogre Battle, March of the Black Queen, but in space, so I ultimately didn't build that. I have another video that goes into that in more detail. Thanks for watching.